Hey guys, welcome back to the Dialed In Podcast. This is the low equity edition. My name is Mike Jackson. I live in Austin, Texas. I'm a buyer for sub 2 deals. I'm looking for rehab properties. I like to do co-living. So anything that you have in the state of Texas, please bring it to me. Today we're joined by Kerrie and Jeison. Ladies first, Kerrie, since you're a newcomer here, love to hear more about what you were up to,
Sure, absolutely.
where you're located, and how people can work with you.
And I've been an agent for about 25 years, and I've been in sub 2 for 2 years, coming up on 2 years. And I like to buy properties subject to and sell them on wraps. So I'm always looking for deals, mostly up and down the East Coast.
I love that. So, Kerrie, my example that I gave to you right before we pressed record is kind of similar to what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. You're providing housing to people who can't qualify. And I love that model. Good for you. Where are you buying?
Like to buy, I buy in, around Philadelphia, New Jersey, North and South Carolina, and Florida.
Perfect. Okay, great. So if anyone has deals in those markets, bring them to Kerrie. Jeison, tell us about yourself. Where are you from?
Yeah, so I'm based in Chicago, mostly looking to buy in and around Chicago. I'm actually looking for property for myself at the moment. So, if you've got anything, please reach out. I'm still pretty new to all of this, so I'm actually working on getting my real estate license just so I can have easier access to the MLS and things like that. But I think right now I'm mostly looking to wholesale, just kind of figure out how this process all works and just get better.
Perfect. Let's be as specific as we possibly can, Jeison. So in case someone finds that property that is yours, right, has your name already written on it, what exactly are you looking for?
I'm hopefully looking for a 3-2, kind of out in like the northern Chicago suburbs, Skokie, Morton Grove area, something close to a train station if possible. I do work downtown, so I do have to commute quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, honestly, anything with a yard, anything that's not an apartment, I'll take it.
Okay, cool. He's not a picky buyer, guys, so bring him the deals in the Chicagoland area. All right, guys. Those of you guys who have watched us before, you guys know the routine. We're going to start to call these low equity, brand new on market listings. Jeison's going to start from the bottom. Kerrie, you're going to start from the top of that list. And let's see what we can find today, okay? Good luck, you guys.
Sounds good.
While you guys are calling, I'm just going to say something to the camera if you don't mind. We've created this very cool little contract generator. It's a free, quick contract generator, for lack of a better term. It's called quickcontracts.com, QUIK contracts.com. We have Pace Morby's free wholesale contract on there that you guys can very, very quickly fill out and send to a seller or an agent. So feel free to use that. It's completely free. Just our little gift to you. Jeison, looks like Kerrie left, so may have been an accidental click.
Oh no, yeah.
That's okay. She'll come back
on accident.
It happens, Kerrie. I get it.
Crazy.
We've all been there. While you guys are trying to connect, by the way, I'm going to call somebody and show you the difference between a lead that's already been contacted by a ton of people and these. Okay. I'm about to get my butt kicked if she picks up. She didn't pick up, guys.
Could give me a call back.
Everybody in Georgia's on lunch, apparently.
Feels like one of those days where no one's picking up.
But I'm supposed to be muted, right?
Hi.
True.
It's not like anyone's picking up anyway, Kerrie. So, dial tones right now are actually the most interesting thing so far.
If you have a question related to a closing, please dial extension 102 during normal business. Office, this is Meredith.
Meredith, hey, my name is Kerrie Deragon. I was looking to speak with Chip. Is he available?
Hey, he's actually traveling out of the office this week. Is there something I can help you with? Or?
Well, I wanted to speak to him about a new listing that he just put on the market on Yarmouth Lane in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Did you put it on for him? Or just is he driving and he's that talented? He does the computer while he's driving.
No, Yarmouth is actually under contract. It's been on for just a little bit.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Then I don't have any questions for him.
Okay.
Thank you.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Yes.
Did she say it was under contract already?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Good for them.
I didn't even think homes were moving that fast.
Me neither. I'd be
still.
curious to see
That's nice.
what was so special about that one.
Thank you for calling Remax. This is Irene. How can I help you?
Irene, hi. I was looking for William or Bill Egling. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did. This is his office. I'm his assistant. How can I help you?
Oh, is he available to speak with?
He is not. He's actually out with clients.
Oh, he is. Okay. I was calling about his listing on Lombardi Drive.
Okay.
Would he be able to give me a call back when he has a chance?
Is there something maybe I can help you with?
Well, I don't know. Are you in contact with the sellers?
No, but I am his assistant. Do you have questions about the property or?
No. I just wanted to talk to him about not necessarily the property in particular, but just about his sellers, I guess, and where they were going, and I don't know. I just had some questions. We're looking for a certain particular type of property.
Okay, and you want to know where the sellers are moving?
No. I just wanted to ask him a couple of questions. That's all, really. Does he talk to potential buyers?
Are you a buyer or are you an agent?
I'm a buyer.
Okay.
I'm a buyer that happens to be an agent, but I'm not licensed in Florida.
Okay. So, yes, he does, and also his daughter Jennifer does. But they are both currently out with clients at the moment.
Sure.
So I can have one of them give you a call back.
Yeah, I would want to talk with the one who speaks directly with the seller.
Right. What is your name?
Kerrie, Kerrie.
Okay.
My last name is Deragon, and my phone number is 215-280-3300.
Hey, Travis. My name is Mike Jackson. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Mike. And yourself?
I'm good, thanks. I'm calling about Calhoun Way. I saw that just came on the market. Was that yesterday or the day before?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. Okay, cool. Awesome. Been asking you about any sort of activity would probably be a little bit premature, right?
I mean, we've had a couple calls on it, but they were just kind of like, hey, you have an open house, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, no showing yet.
Got it. Okay, cool. Travis, I'll be quick. I don't want to waste your time if what I do doesn't make sense for this listing. Okay, so feel free to tell me to go pound sand. I won't be offended. It won't be the first time today. What I do is I typically buy properties and then I sell them to people who are struggling to qualify for traditional financing through owner financing. That's how I sell them to people. And the reason that this was of interest to me is I do some quick calculations before I take a look at listings. It looks like this is a really tight equity play for the seller. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. What is their situation? Are they going to have to pay at close? It looks like they may have to.
They may have to. I mean, essentially, he wants to break even, is what this guy's doing, because they moved out here from the Bay Area and they just realized, since they have to go back to work kind of thing, that, it's better to just be in the Bay Area. So that's kind of what they're going through right now.
Got it. So they've moved out of state, or they're moving out of state?
No, they're moving back to the Bay Area, to the Bay Area.
Got it. Okay.
Here in California.
Yeah. Okay. Just out of curiosity, since it is such a tight equity position, a lot of the times we acquire a property like the way that I described. What we'll do is we'll simply come in and take over the mortgage payments. Would the sellers be open to something like that in this situation if I paid your commission directly?
Actually, I think that, kind of would be something they may listen to.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, have you done a transaction like that before?
Are you talking about not assuming the loan, kind of just taking it over and then kind of like a seller financing?
Yeah.
Is that essentially what we're talking about?
Yeah, that's probably the most.
No.
That's the most well-spoken answer I've ever heard an agent say, by the way, about the way that we purchase. So thank you so much for doing that. A lot of people just.
I haven't handled one. I'm aware of them, but I've just have that opportunity to work through one of those.
Sure. Okay. Well, cool. Well, at the very least, if it works on this, great. If it doesn't, maybe we can work on something together in the future, and I can kind of show you how this does work. If I submitted an offer to you guys just to kind of put something on paper and start a conversation, would that be helpful?
Yes, absolutely. Because they're kind of iffy. I always tell them to, hey, take it with a grain of salt. If someone tells you they're going to write an offer until we get it in our email.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. Well, what I'll do is I'll put something on paper, and then I think it's probably worth spending a couple minutes together after I send it over to you just to answer any questions on how the process works. And if you think it might make sense to submit that to the sellers, I'd love for you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, send something over. I'd love to talk to you about it and kind of get more of a feel for how that works. Today my schedule's a little tight though. If you do send it, because it's my little brother's birthday and I'm taking him out golfing. So that might be a little wait on responses.
Well, I think it's a well-deserved wait on response. Actually, what I keep telling people is the more deals I do, the more golf I can play, and that's the only reason that I do this. So,
ain't that the truth, man? I was like, get food on the table for the kids, and I can play rounds of golf without my wife yelling at me. That's why I work so hard. Darn right.
Me too. And I'm not as familiar with Northern California. I'm actually from Newport Beach in SoCal. How far is?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, how far is the Bay Area or wherever they're moving to in the Bay Area from Stockton?
Probably about an hour 40 minutes, but they have to go over with a pretty heavy traffic area called the Altamont.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually where a lot of people get annoyed with the commute, is that on any given day, it can turn your commute from an hour to 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I know exactly what that's like.
I'm sure you're aware of great traffic.
Yep. I used to, before I moved out to Texas, I lived in Redondo Beach, and I would travel down to Newport Beach for work every single day. And even though it's only like 30 miles, it would take me about an hour and a half. So I totally get it.
Yep. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Travis. I really appreciate your time. Fairways and greens today. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're going greens and regulation. Let's get it.
There you go.
I look forward to talking to you, Mike, and let's see if this kind of makes sense for my sellers.
Thank you, Travis. Have a great day. Bye-bye. All right, guys, give me feedback on that phone call.
That was amazing. Oh my God. That agent was like, if you could look up a sub-2 friendly agent in the dictionary and come up with an example, it was that guy.
It would show a picture of Kerrie, and then underneath it would show a picture of that guy, right?
How come it hasn't been on the market that long?
It was just on the market as of yesterday, and they're really tight. I mean, I think my numbers here show negative $3,300. It's an FHA loan. They're moving back to the Bay Area. The reason I was asking that question, by the way, how far it is because this is an FHA loan. And if the buyers or the sellers in this situation are looking to buy another house with an FHA loan, then we need to kind of space that out as much as possible. Or if there's any other financial sort of distress in there might be some sort of exemption.
Lived in Southern California? Did you never live in Southern California?
I'm sorry?
Oh, okay.
No, I did. I'm from Orange County, California. Yeah. In fact, I have a big old sign here that's a California Bear. It says California Republic in my office. And I've had to hide it because here in Texas, they don't like us Californians. So that's why it's here in my office, not out anymore. So what feedback would you guys give me on that call?
Not necessarily like feedback, but I did like how you attacked the equity position right away, because it kind of, you've mentioned it to me before, but like talking about that introduced the conversation into where you wanted to go to, right? Like you talked about the equity position. He knows that, he admits that, but then you were able to roll that into like, hey, well, this is how I buy homes, and it tends to help sellers like this. So I'm going to steal that.
Whatever works, and here's the thing, Jeison, this is actually a really interesting point.
One guy, somebody's calling me back.
To me. Go ahead, pick it up.
Kerrie.
Hey, Kerrie, this is Eric. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Eric?
Wonderful, thank you. And I apologize for missing your call.
No, that's no problem at all. I was calling about your listing on 118th Place.
Yes, what can I answer for you?
Well, I just was wondering. I was looking at I guess I was looking at the equity that they have in the home, and it looks like it might be pretty tight. will they maybe have to come to the, to the table with cash out of their pocket?
No, I set it up for what I'm charging them is going to be very minimal.
Mm-hmm.
They're flying their pets a little while out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm trying to do a favor and spot there and hopefully give them a little bit of, at least if nothing up break even. But I cannot imagine a scenario unless we really have to break the price down for those.
Yeah. Well, that's very kind of you. Sure. And are they're relocating or they're just downsizing?
No, they're their boyfriend and girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
The boyfriend, that's the boyfriend's house. His mom was out there. I had helped his girlfriend purchase her home before they met.
Mm-hmm.
And they have since met. They have a blended family. So she's actually renting her place that I helped her get. Gil is going to sell this place and they're going to go buy it.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm asking the questions is because we, what our company does is we buy properties by taking over the payments, and then we sell them seller finance to, folks that are having a hard time qualifying, for a mortgage, to make something more affordable for them. And I was just wondering if this is something that they may be interested in.
I appreciate you asking. I've had a few people reach out with similar items, and I've run it by them. They're not interested in it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Question for you is this: a couple of folks I spoke with, my understanding is I understand you take over the payments. If for whatever reason you stop making the payments, that would fall back to the sellers, if I understand it correctly. But also, I was told by my real estate attorney that if the lender or the mortgage, people holding the mortgage found out that they did it, they could actually call in the note immediately. Have you heard of this?
Yes. Yep. That's called a due on sale clause, and that's definitely a possibility. But we have a lot of different options to prevent that from happening. We can transfer the property into a trust. We can do, different kind of contracts where, either the deed doesn't transfer over or the deed does transfer over, but it's not recorded. And we also can put clauses in the agreement that would protect, the seller if, my company stopped paying for whatever reason. I mean, it wouldn't be good for us only because we're providing that housing to somebody else. So, we're definitely, not going to do anything that's going to put them in jeopardy.
That makes sense. I ask because, as you know, there's plenty of folks out there that are not necessarily on the up and up, and
absolutely
to kind of weed through it.
Absolutely,
you guys are legit. Some of this folks too. But what I would say is, I don't know. Maybe we've been on the market now, back on the market. I think for about a little over a week. We've had good activity so far, so I'll be curious to see how the next week or two pans out. But maybe another 30 days, if nothing's moving, perhaps I will be willing to at least listen.
Sure. Yeah. I'd be happy to follow back up with you, in 30 days or so. You said that it was back on the market. Was it under agreement at one point?
So they originally had tried to go to market last year, right during the summer round of the interest rate issue.
Oh, yeah.
So I had talked to them and said, I think it would be in our best interest to come off, let it expire, come off, wait about 30, 60 days and see what happens with the market.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got you. Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to follow up. And in the meanwhile, if you have any, questions or, anything I can help you with, feel free to give me a call.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Kerrie.
All right.
I'll see what we talk about for today.
Okay, sounds good, Eric. Thank you for calling back. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, time for you guys to critique.
No, that was good. That was really good. You could definitely hear in his tone of voice and kind of what he said that he's been approached by other subject to investors that didn't seem to, I don't know. It kind of sounded like he talked to a couple people that have already kind of thrown off red flags, and he wasn't necessarily sure that could perform. And you could tell he trusted you a lot more than I think some of the people he's probably talked to already. So that was huge.
So Jeison, put those pieces together a little bit, right? So Kerrie figured it out on the phone call, but the reason that he's been approached by people trying to do something similar to what Kerrie was proposing was because this property specifically was on the market before. Right. And so anytime that a property we're calling, whether it's new on market for us, there are times when it's been listed before and they've taken it off market, maybe to kind of just refresh the days on market, or for whatever other reason, they're putting it back on the market after it didn't sell, maybe changing the price, making it kind of fresh. What's so interesting about those scenarios is that if we call an agent who has had a low equity listing before, the odds are that they've been hammered by people talking about taking over payments.
Right.
And the beauty of the position that we're in, being actually educated and doing these things correctly, morally, ethically, all of those sorts of things, is that we can come in and kind of speak in a way that maybe they haven't heard before.
Yeah.
Right. And Kerrie, you did an incredible job there of addressing their concerns, right? His concerns were what happens in the case of default and then due on sale, right? Great job talking about how you handle those sorts of situations. He didn't seem as concerned. You know, a lot of agents they'll completely back away. They'll say, I just don't want to deal with this anymore, right? Whereas he was a great agent because he was willing to learn and understand how his sellers are protected. So great job. And I love the line that you said of, we're typically putting a new buyer in there. And so we need to make sure, it's our ethical duty basically to make sure that the mortgage for the sellers is paid every single month because of the impact that it would have on our buyers.
Jeopardize them.
Exactly.
Now,
exactly. I thought it was a great phone call. I think that the advantage that you have is that first, you know your stuff, but secondly, you're also an agent. So you kind of speak their language, you know, and this is Jeison. This is one thing I was going to mention to you right before Kerrie got on her call, is that sometimes I can give a line to Kerrie, or Kerrie can give me the same line, and I can read it word for word in my style, and it might work for Kerrie, but it's not going to work for me. And it's just because it's not me necessarily, right? It's not my brand voice. It's not who I am. Take it again.
Hi, this is Kerrie.
Hey, Kerrie. It's Terry Mahoney with Keller Williams. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing, Kerrie?
I'm doing fabulous.
Fabulous. It must be a sunny, warm day then, I'm thinking.
It is.
But we have a slightly warm day. We might have gotten to 55 here.
That's good.
This is not too bad for Pennsylvania in March.
True. Just so you know, I'm originally from Massachusetts.
Really? Whereabouts?
I was born and raised outside of Boston, in a city called Everett. And then my parents moved to Carver, which is near Plymouth, Mass.
Okay.
And then they moved to Chelmsford, which is near the New Hampshire border.
Okay.
So,
I've been spending a lot of time up there, actually. My uncle lives in Newburyport.
Oh, it's beautiful there.
It is. And he was up in Portsmouth, and he had a horrible car accident.
I'm so sorry.
I know, it was really awful. And he doesn't have kids. And so I've been driving up there a lot to, just to kind of help him. He's still in the hospital. I actually became his guardian.
Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. I mean, I'm glad he's got you, but
yeah,
I'm so sorry you have to go through that.
I was talking to him over the summer about his house, and he was talking about his cell phone, like, don't text me and all those things, because he still had a flip phone. And then he had just gotten an iPhone and he was trying to figure it out. And I remember hanging up the phone thinking, oh my gosh, he doesn't even have any kids to help him figure out how to use an iPhone. So, but anyway, he lived to tell the tale. So, it's just one day at a time at this point.
Right. So, before we moved here to Florida, we were living in New Hampshire. So I know Portsmouth really well. There used to be a brewery there that we absolutely loved, but unfortunately it closed.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
COVID had done its damage, but then there was pipes burst up in the top floor and just came down and just ruined the whole restaurant.
Oh, wow. Wow. It's funny because my uncle is a musician and the accident happened before Thanksgiving. And so I went up like the week after Thanksgiving and I was driving around Portsmouth. I was trying to find the place where he played music, the bar. And I couldn't get over how cute the town was. It was just, oh my gosh, it was so adorable. And all the Christmas decorations and everybody's out and about. It was so festive. It was really, I couldn't imagine.
If we were to ever move back, that's where we would live around that area.
Yes. Yeah. Like I couldn't imagine he moved up there. He went to college up there and never came back. And I never really could figure it out until recently, which is nice.
So what kind of musician is he?
He plays like, oh gosh, I was going to say folk music, but that's not even it. I don't know. His band was called Malcolm and the Malfunctions. A lot of blues. He played the piano, he sang, and he played the harmonica.
That sounds very cool.
Yeah.
My godfather was Jimmy Mosier. He was a jazz musician in the Boston area. He taught at Berkeley.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think of, there's a famous jazz musician. Sometimes I remember his name, sometimes it escapes me that he used to play with. It's just not coming to me right now.
No, that's okay. It'll probably come to you as soon as we hang up.
Of course. That's how this old brain works.
Yes, for sure. How long have you been in Florida?
We've been here 14 years.
Okay, nice. Well, I'm actually calling about your listing on Hollow Oak.
Okay.
And basically, I mean, I was just noticing that they, I don't know their situation, but it looks like they're pretty tight on equity in that house.
They are.
Yeah. It's a shame what's sort of happened to Florida since the last two, tornadoes or hurricanes.
It's actually not too bad. I mean, our area seems to miss a lot of the really bad ones. My dad's in Fort Myers. Fort Myers Beach got wiped out
Mm-hmm.
A couple of hurricanes ago. And then, so Pensacola is way on the panhandle, almost in Alabama. And you come across the state heading towards south of Tallahassee and over west. I mean, east is where it seems to get hit.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. My son's been in St. Pete for the last 3 years, but he's finally moving home. Yippee.
Oh, good.
Well, so what? Let me tell you a little bit about what our company does. What we do is, we buy homes. If the seller is interested, it always depends on, what's going on with them and where they're going and, whether they have cash to bring to the table. But what we do is we buy the homes by taking over the payments. And then we sell them to people that are having a hard time qualifying for a mortgage, and we sell them on seller financing. And are you familiar with that at all?
I'm not. So I've had 3 other investors reach out to me asking about taking over payments, but not for a resale necessarily. They haven't shared that part.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's just really a very big affordability issue, obviously, in the world today. And there's just a lot of people out there that are just stuck. The rents are so high and, it's really difficult for them to be able to, save money and buy a home. And this gives us an opportunity to sell it to them and have somewhat of an affordable payment for them.
But what about the deed?
So it can be done a lot of different ways, and it really depends on, your sellers and what they're comfortable with. We can do a contract for deed where the deed does not transfer over. But we can do a regular sub-to purchase. And then, we make the payments and we put provisionary things in the contract to protect the sellers. But we're not going to do anything that's going to risk, the bank calling the note due and our new buyers being homeless. But basically, we take over the terms, and the property can be, it can be transferred into a trust. The trust can be assigned to us. There's a lot of different ways it can be done. It's actually in the IRS code, sub-to purchase. It's interesting. It's been around for a while, but it's been around for a long time, but it's probably coming back more recently.
Yeah, it hasn't been in my wheelhouse. This is my 9th year in real estate, and has not been in my wheelhouse all this time. But we're in an area that we really haven't needed it.
Yeah.
But prices of homes in our area doubled since COVID. But
Wow.
salaries haven't. So
Yes.
there are a lot of people in the situations that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They can't afford a home but really want one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's really, it's a shame, but we enjoy what we do just because we have the opportunity to help people, get into homes. Are your sellers, are they moving someplace else? I mean, do they need to buy something else?
And exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So that's the situation he's in right now. And he and his children. So we were originally, he was going to do, have the place cleaned, have it painted, get it ready for sale. And then his job transferred him. So he went there, and now he's like, okay, I got to get it sold fast. And that's when we dropped the price to the $290.
So where did he move to? Where did he go? Like far?
Yes.
Oh, like across the country.
Not being able to commute daily.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So, and does he have a VA loan?
He does.
Okay. And basically with the VA, he has an entitlement amount.
Right.
So the nice thing about the VA is, he can buy another property, and if he were to sell this one subject to, it's based on what that secondary entitlement is.
Right.
And so he, I can help. I'd be happy to help him figure out exactly what that is. But if this is something he's interested in, we pay the commission, for him, and, depending on any equity that he may have, we can give him money to move. And then we take over the payments, and we structure the contract in such a way that it's safe, safe for him, it's safe for all parties, basically.
All right. So subject to is what the other investors were calling about also, especially because it is VA and its interest rate is so low.
Yeah. What is his interest rate?
Like 3.9.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's more than half what it is today.
I know it.
Yeah.
I know it. I think this morning it was 6.6 was the lowest I saw.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd be happy to get on a call with you and him, if this is something that he would consider, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that he might have.
Okay. I'm actually stepped out of a class that I'm in this afternoon, and then I've got appointments after it, but I plan on talking to him at least over the weekend about everybody that has called, and just see if it's something that he would want me to pursue. I just feel odd calling him because I don't understand it well enough to present it well to him.
Right. Right. I understand that. I mean, I can present it to him with you on the phone. I mean, I'm not going to tell him anything that, different than what I just said to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I could answer any of his questions.
All right, Kerrie. I will talk to him over the weekend and let him know that I'm getting these calls and see if he wants to. I did write your phone number down.
Yeah. And basically, I mean, we just take over the payments. That's the important thing for him to understand. We just take over the payments.
I get that part of it. The part that makes me nervous is what happens if there's a default.
Yep.
His name's still on the deed.
Yep.
Can he move forward and purchase another property? So
absolutely, those are all
his best interest at heart. So,
absolutely. Yep.
I need to protect them. So.
Oh, of course. Of course. That's your job for sure. And it can be done in a lot of different ways. And it's really just, a matter of his comfort level.
Right.
And we're not going to do anything that's going to risk, that would be a risk to the new people that are purchased the home and have moved in there, and if for some reason they default, our company still makes the payments.
Got you.
You.
Okay. All right. I am,
We'll get back to your class. We can talk, again, whenever, you'll think of questions in the middle of the night. So feel free to give me a call tomorrow if you have any.
you're not wrong.
I know how it works. Darn, why didn't I ask this?
Exactly. My old brain isn't as fast as it used to be.
Oh, no, I hear you there.
Well, it was a pleasure talking with you, Kerrie.
It was really nice.
This weekend, I'll make sure that I get back to you, okay?
All right, sounds good, Terry. Thanks very much. It was nice talking with you too.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye now.
bye-bye. Thank you.
Kerrie, great call. Really good call. Jeison, what did you think of that call?
Yeah, no, it was good. A lot of rapport for sure. I think that was probably the biggest thing.
Well, sometimes I have the gift of gab, so I have to roll it back into business and stop talking about New Hampshire.
Kerrie, but that was the beauty of that phone call for me personally, is that she was actually the one who was pushing you on that rapport building, right? On like the I live here, my parents live here, musicians, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
She kept pushing you, and there's a lot of commonality there, which was great. And that's what built that rapport. But what was expert masterclass level about you was that you would transition that when you felt like, okay, now it's time to talk business.
Thank you.
And you did it beautifully. It was seamless. It was not like, hey, let's stop talking about this and focus on this. It was more of, hey, this is a nice segue for us to get back into what I really called about. So great job.
Thank you.
Really good job. How did you feel about that phone call?
I thought it was good, but we don't really know, like she doesn't know anything at all about sub 2, and she's getting other calls about sub 2, and I try not to use the word sub 2. I hope I didn't, I just try to say taking over terms or whatever. And what do you say as far as, making sure they're protected?
What do I say if they ask the question about protection?
Protect him, their seller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, great question. In fact, the other agent that you talked to asked a very similar question. And every time I hear that from an agent or a seller, I feel like it's my opportunity where I can really dig my heels in and communicate a massive value add. So what I say is very similar to what it is that you said, but the most simplistic way of communicating protection for a seller with regard to a subject to transaction is saying that we do the same thing that every single big bank does to protect themselves. As the seller, you're going to receive a promissory note and a deed of trust that very explicitly outlines what happens in the case of a mispayment. Mm-hmm. That's your protection in case someone doesn't make a payment. You can at that point foreclose depending on what you have as that clause in your contract. Is it 30 days? Is it 6 months? What I would want to do is say, let's limit that as much as we possibly can so that we don't, in the worst case scenario, which is unlikely, in the worst case scenario, you can take that property back as soon as possible. What I also talk about too, which it actually pits me against everybody else who is calling her. And that's really what I liked about that call for you, is that this is going to give you the opportunity to position yourself as the expert of the people who are calling her about sub 2 for this deal. So what I always want to say is that a lot of people are going to call and mention things like performance deeds or deeds in lieu of foreclosure. I will never say that to you as the seller or the agent, because based on what I have experienced in my legal counsel says that typically does not hold up in a court of law. So the best way that I can protect the seller is the same way that Bank of America and Wells Fargo are going to protect themselves in the case of default. In addition to that, what I'll do is I'll set up a reserve account of 2 to 6 months worth of payments. The reason that I do that is because if we have a properly outlined default clause in our promissory note and deed of trust, I want to make sure that if I don't make the payment to you as the seller has access to funds that can make the payment so it does not affect their credit while they're foreclosing on me. And so basically what that does, Kerrie, the way that I feel about it is it positions me as the safest person to sell to. That's all that I want. And the agent that you spoke with before, he had a very similar question. And in my head, when he asked the question of you, I was saying in my head, I hope that she says, if this deal is properly structured, then the sellers are in a safer position. It's kind of planting that seed of doubt. And so that's kind of what I want to do against everyone else. I want to say, look, there are a lot of people who are going to talk about performance deeds or deeds of trust. I can imagine that if I do, in the worst of worst scenarios, I miss a payment and you try to get the house back with a performance deed, I don't want you to take that to the courthouse and for them not to accept it. What I want you guys to do is have full protection the same way that the largest banks and financial institutions protect themselves, so that you can foreclose on me. And at the same time, you have funds available to you so that you can make payments to your bank in the meantime, so you don't miss payments and it affects your credit.
Sure.
If you guys can, poke holes in that. Let's strengthen that up if we can, because I think that that's really where, as sub 2 people, we can really thrive in this, right? There are a lot of people who are calling about low equity deals. How can we be better when we protect sellers? So if there's any holes in that, what do you guys think we should say instead?
Well, I think comparing yourself to a big bank is huge. You know what I mean? Like, that we would give you all the protections that a big bank, takes for themselves. I mean, I don't really have a lot of holes to poke in that. I thought that what you said was great. And she herself wouldn't probably know what a performance clause is, but she probably knows what a mortgage and a promissory note is,
Yeah, exactly. Jason, what did you think of that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with Kerrie. There's not much else I personally would add to that. I think that's a good line to add, especially because it builds, not only does it build credibility, but it also shows that you also have their seller's best interest at heart. Like, you don't, I as an investor don't want to not be able to perform. It's not in my best interest either, but I'm going to show it to you that I care more about your sellers than I do about like me performing, if that makes sense. Yeah,
I think that's great. One example that I'll also use is actually a real life example that I'm currently going through right now. A little bit of it is I'm going to say something where I can exaggerate it a little bit, but I think it drives the point home just a little bit more. So I bought a house in San Antonio on sub 2, sold it on owner finance. So I wrapped it. The person who bought it from me did not make payments for, at this point it's probably 6 months, but I really started to take action after 4 to 6 weeks. And what I would say, if I were to use that as a third party story, is I would say that, yes, I hold a promissory note and a deed of trust that she has to pay me with a properly defined default clause. We also, this is the exaggeration that you could possibly add if you want to, is you can say that in addition to all of the other documents that we had her sign at closing, we did have her sign a deed in lieu of foreclosure or a performance deed, whatever you want to say. And what we realized is that that actually didn't hold up, but the fact that we have a promissory note and a deed of trust, that's actually what held up and allowed us to foreclose. So you can kind of use that a little bit as your third party story to help strengthen that whole argument that we want to be the people that she comes back to because she knows that we're going to protect them more than anyone else. So great call, Kerrie. In addition to those two things, by the way, I'll go deep into those two things. And then what I'll also say is, in addition to that, we're also going to make sure that this property and the mortgage is serviced by a servicing company, not just because everyone else does that, but also because as the seller, I would want to make sure that I am made aware entirely of payments being made, but more importantly, payments being missed. So I want to make sure that I am in the line of communication, notifications that payments are being made, so I feel secure. And maybe as the seller, I want that for 6 months or 12 months. And then at that point, once they're consistently paid, maybe I stop looking. But if my concern, which it should be, is payments aren't being made, I'm going to want to make sure, sorry, I got an itch. I'm going to want to make sure that I am notified if anything happens with the property that is possibly going to affect me. And for me as the seller, that's really an extra layer of protection that I'm not paying for, right? The buyer's going to pay for that. The last thing that I'll mention too is insurance. The first, or it's like kind of like 1A, 1B in concerns with a subject to transaction. You heard it with that first call, Kerrie, is the due on sale clause, right? So what we're going to want to make sure of is that the insurance is properly taken care of. It's not done by the Allstate guy down the street, but it's done by someone who actually does these types of insurance policies all day long. Meaning that the one red flag that we're trying to mitigate as much as we possibly can is insurance being done incorrectly so that it does raise a red flag with the bank. And so to do that properly, we make sure that it's done by a professional. And we do have the seller as an additionally insured on the policy, as well as the primary mortgagor. So those are just extra 2 layers that I want to add sometimes, depending on what I feel the agent is looking for. But I do think that she was looking for a lot of information, so she probably could have handled all of that.
About the loan servicing, I usually always talk about that.
Yeah, loan servicing is good. The last thing that you could throw in there, if you wanted to add that extra layer of protection with regard to the due on sale clause, is putting the property into a revocable living trust and then transferring that revocable living trust in the process of closing. Now, a lot of people talk about trust, but they think about land trusts. Land trusts are total BS. They're not going to help you at all. In fact, sometimes they're actually looked at as like a negative. They're looked at as like a precursor to fraud, basically, sometimes. Yeah, because what a land trust does is it basically just, it's like a tissue paper with the seller's name written on it that is somehow attached to the mortgage still. That tissue paper is so fine and is not going to get you any kind of protection whatsoever. All it is saying, yes, the sellers still own it, but then you just wipe away that tissue paper and you can actually see who really owns the property. It's just like, look over there and not here. Yeah. Whereas a revocable living trust, which costs more to create on the front end of the closing, actually does possibly, I'm going to say possibly, for legal reasons, provide more protection against the due on sale clause, not just being called. It can still be called, but it's going to protect the buyer and the seller from the due on sale clause, resulting in the property being foreclosed on. And the way that it does that is, again, this is all legalese. Who knows if this is going to stand up forever? But according to the Garn-St. Germain Act of 1982, a property cannot be foreclosed on as a result of a due on sale clause being called if the property is in a trust. So that's like an extra layer. If the sellers are concerned about due on sale, we have a bunch of ways that we can prevent that from happening. We also have remedies to it as well, right? Which are outlined way before closing.
Okay. I had recently, I'm in the process of purchasing a sub 2 here near me, right down the road from me. And the sellers wanted it transferred to a trust, and we hired somebody to do it, but he transferred it into a land trust. And it was a small credit union, and they said, no, it couldn't be done. And we didn't understand what the problem was. And this is the first I've heard that land trusts are no good. Mm-hmm.
It's a waste of time. It really is. It's very much of look over there, don't look here. So you don't want to do that, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to try to trick the bank and the bank to have that little needle in them going, I carry a lot more weight than this guy Mike does. I'm actually going to take him down in this situation. And so that feels very much like cloak and dagger, as opposed to a real type of protection, which is let's actually put this into a trust, a revocable trust, with the buyer as the beneficiary, or however your attorney would draw that up. But the transfer of title would actually change officially within that trust, as opposed to outside it or within a
So the
trust.
way we were doing it is we were going to transfer the property into the trust, but I was the owner of the trust, or the trustee, and the sellers were the beneficiary. And but I had talked to someone previously who was going to assign it from one LLC to another LLC, but we didn't end up going with her. We ended up going with this guy. And now we're doing a novation agreement, which is fine. But I didn't really understand the whole trust thing, the land trust versus a revocable trust.
A revocable trust is going to cost you a little bit more. Typically, it's about $1,000 or $1,200 at closing.
Well,
I find it worth it. And
$1,500.
for me, it's not just worth
I paid him $1,500.
What's that? Whoa. Yeah, I've done land trust before, and it's cost me $300 or something like that. It could just be state dependent. But I like the protection for me, but I also like the extra layer of comfort for the seller. And I want to make sure that I do something different, or I go to a different level of security than anyone else does. And have you ever heard, Jeison and Kerrie, have you guys ever heard about Pace talking about scorching the earth? Okay. Have you ever heard of Jeison?
I don't think so.
Okay. Scorching the earth is beautiful. Watch how this works. The way that he first described it was with regard to a cash wholesale type of deal. What he would do is he would go to a seller and he'd say, I bet you're getting a lot of other wholesalers, a lot of other real estate investors talking about buying the property. Let me tell you what I will do. And if all five, or if all other investors do these 5 things, then I will pay $1,000 more than anybody else who commits to doing these 5 things. And the reality is that these 5 things that I'll mention, hopefully I can remember all 5. The reality is that no one else is going to do these 5 things, which just means that Pace is going to come in and make sure that he is in a position to give the sellers exactly what they're looking for to best protect them. Okay. And also give them the best deal. So these 5 things are a hard earnest money deposit, and a significant one, not just like $100 or $1,000. He's talking $5,000 or $10,000. Now, hard, I mean, once you submit that, it's non-refundable. So that's one thing, a hard earnest money deposit. No inspection period. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't go see it before you contract it, right? But it just means that a lot of people are going to get properties under contract and then want to go see it with their contractor or their partner.
Yeah, it is.
Is that an agent? Take
Hi,
it.
this is Kerrie.
Let's do it.
Oh, hey, Kerrie. This is Kerrie Deragon with Egling at Remax. You had called in a little bit ago regarding our listing at 1184 Lombardi.
Yes. Hi, Karen. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How can we help you today?
Well, thanks for getting back to me. So I just was looking at your listing, and I noticed that it's a little bit tight on equity that your sellers are. And what our company does is that we purchase homes from sellers that have, that are tight on equity. We do this by taking over their payments, their mortgage payments, paying the seller, and then we sell them to folks that have a hard time getting approved for a mortgage.
I'm going to be honest.
Sure.
This particular seller would not be open to something like that, but we've been seeing that kind of offering more and more lately. But,
sure, I understand.
It would not be something. They just want to make a
clean break. Yeah, I was just going to.
Or they'll just stay there.
What do you think what is it that they don't like about it, I guess, maybe?
Well, again, they don't want to, when they want to sell it, they just want to sell it and, do the title transfer, get the money that they're owed, and move on.
Right.
They don't want any ties or anything like that. No.
And they're fine with just bringing a check, to the table in order to do that.
If they have to, yes, they will.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that sounds.
I appreciate the call.
Oh, absolutely.
We're hearing this kind of creative offers more and more, but.
Well, and it isn't so much, for the sellers. It's more for us about the buyers that really can't afford, someplace with the interest rates the way that they are, and salaries.
This is in a 55 plus community too. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I did see that, but we do have a couple of older buyers. Don't tell anybody. That'll just be our secret.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, but I appreciate your call and interest, and thank you so much.
All right, thanks for getting back to me. Okay, bye-bye.
She was a cool agent. I
He
liked
did.
her, actually. Great. Yeah, straightforward. Like, here's the thing: if someone knows that they're going to have to make a payment at closing to just cash, like, get rid of this property,
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. So let them do that. If they decide that they don't want to, then we can kind of hang around, right? Maybe we'll be there to catch them as they fall. Hey, Jeison, before I finish the Scorch the Earth thing, tell me a little bit about your call. I know that we're just coming up to the top of the hour here. Tell me a little bit about what happened on your call.
Yeah, I mean, it was very similar to the agent that just called Kerrie back. He returned my call. We talked, built a little bit of a rapport with him, and then, I introduced the same thing you did with a low equity play. I was like, hey, this seems kind of tight. They might even have to come out of pocket if I'm doing my math right. We typically like to buy homes that are lower equity because we can provide the sellers with, not having to come out of pocket. And then we also turn that around into buyers that have been priced out with the current interest rates. And he knew exactly what I was talking about. He's like, yeah, I've got like 25 years of experience. You're talking about a wraparound mortgage. And I was like, oh yeah, like that's something very similar. And he's like, well, I do understand that transaction works, but unfortunately these sellers, they don't want that. And I, did a little bit of digging to understand kind of why. And the person selling is a finance professional, whatever that means. I'm not entirely too sure, but
it means they're smarter than you.
They know what. Yeah.
Or it means that they manage the register at the local Hot Topic.
Yeah. So it seemed like the seller knew what subject to was, or what wraparound mortgage would entail, and they didn't want to carry the debt. They're like, nope, they don't want the debt. They want to get it off their name. They want no ties to it, et cetera, et cetera. And so at that point, I was just kind of, okay, well, that makes sense. Then appreciate your time. And, since you know what a wraparound mortgage is, if you ever have something that kind of matches that, give me a call. Right. So that's kind of how that went.
Yeah. Similar type of result, right? There's not a whole lot. It's like pushing a rope.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to do it. Yeah, I didn't want to be like a stale salesman and try to be like, oh, but, I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
So a good way to transition out of that is to talk about another opportunity in the future or something else that they have. And you can say, this is the only way that we acquire properties. Do you have anything else that might make sense for us to explore? Do you have any other listings that are either coming up or maybe even something in your office that might be really tight from an equity standpoint where this could be of benefit to the seller? Mm-hmm. And the reason that you asked that question is to prime more. Would that agent, for example, be somebody who is promoting this type of sale, or is he against it? Yeah. And if he's against it, then, that's pushing a rope. Yeah. You're not going to get a whole lot out of that kind of an agent.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I tried that a little bit with him at the end, and I just kind of I tug on the ego a little bit because he said he had been around for a really long time, and he knew exactly what a wraparound mortgage was. And so, I just told him like, oh, well, awesome. If you ever have something that, matches kind of like what that situation looks like. And, he actually sent me a text message. So I gave him my info. He texted me. So, you never know. Maybe something will come out of that. But I think it was a positive phone call because that rapport was still built and it wasn't like a, hey, get off the phone. But just for that particular seller, I knew it wasn't going to work.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think it's a positive phone call.
Mike,
okay,
I mean, you can finish the scorching the earth, but I did just want to ask you at some point, how do you find your wrap buyers?
A few ways. So the easiest way to do it is just to contact every agent who's in that market, who is doing those types of transactions. You can actually look that up in PropStream to see who is closing on owner finance transactions. But what I do is I pull a list of every single agent who has represented a buyer in the past 6 months or so in the market that this property is in, and I email them or I call them and ask them if they have any owner finance buyers. That's the fastest way to do it, and you have to be okay paying them a commission to bring a buyer. But if you want speed, you're probably saving money that way. Okay. The other way to do it is Facebook Marketplace, but not just the way that you're probably thinking about it. Yes, you want to post it on Facebook Marketplace. Absolutely. But there are people who are posting ghost ads on Facebook Marketplace in your market all the time who are just looking for buyers. And they're acting the same way that a real estate agent is, in the sense that they are representing, quote unquote, a buyer, but you have to pay them a small fee.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way to find them as well. Some little kind of low key ways of doing it. You can go to like local taco stands and post in Spanish, dueño a dueño, and
maybe
see if you can get anyone that way.
That turn down people.
Yeah, that's a little bit harder, I found, because they're not going to give you access to their clients. So what you're going to have to do is call them up and say, look, we have this house. We're selling it at this price. If you have anyone who has struggled to qualify in the past couple of months, feel free to send it your way. I'm happy to pay you a marketing fee or whatever you need. Or however we can compensate you, we'll find a way to do that. So those are probably the top 3 or 4 ways that I would do
it. Marketplace, like what do you call it? Seller finance? Like what do you say?
Yeah, I call it no bank financing. I will finance you or something like that. And do one in English and Spanish if you can.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so we'll finish up with Scorching the Earth, and I'll let you guys go. Sorry, I just got a text. Okay, cool. So Scorching the Earth, beautiful, beautiful concept. 5 things. I actually looked it up while Kerrie, you were on the phone call, so I don't miss anything. Non-refundable deposit, a hefty one, not just $100, $5,000 or $10,000. Okay, so this is something that you will give to a seller or to an agent in any type of transaction. But what I want to do is take a little bit of a pivot at the end of this and think about how we can do this with owner finance or subject to types of deals, like creative finance deals. Okay, so this is strictly for cash, but there are elements we can use.
Nope.
Another agent?
Not this time.
Okay, so non-refundable EMD, no inspection period, no access to the house after the contract is signed. Right? So what that does, that prevents against assignments. The concern with people is that I'm going to get this under contract and then just try to sell it to somebody else.
What was that one? I'm sorry.
Okay. And the last one I just mentioned was no access to the property after the contract is signed.
Wait, for you or for the seller? Okay.
For the buyer. No assignment clause. So in my contract, don't put it, I will assign this, or I have the right to assign this. The last one is proof of funds in your name in a bank account, right? So it's going to say Jeison Rosado, for example, has $1 million in his bank account right now. Okay. So those are 5 things that you can do with cash wholesale transactions. Tell me what you guys think about these for subject to creative finance on market types of deals. Hard earnest money deposit, non-refundable. I don't need an inspection period as long as I get to see it to start. Depending on what you're going to do with it, you can always include a no assignment contract or a no assignment clause in there. Like if you're going to buy it, then what's the point in having an assignment clause in there, for example? So I think that's really strong because a lot of people are trying to wholesale these deals. And at the same time, by the way, because there's so much impact potentially on the sellers in this situation, if payments are missed, for example, having no assignment clause in there is extra protection for the seller, right? Because they're not dealing with someone that they don't know. They're dealing with you. Okay. Proof of funds is always helpful, right? To make sure that you can pay for the down payment, the entry fee, whatever that is. But also I think something that I would put in here is what we talked about before, 2 to 4 months maybe of reserves set aside.
Because we're buying the subject too, right?
Yeah.
So is this more like you mentioned you wouldn't have like an assignment clause? I'm assuming this is more for people that are going to buy, keep it, and then turn around and rent it or wrap it to somebody else, for example. So like in my situation, right, like I might not have, I wouldn't have the funds to be able to kind of show like, hey, I can pay for all of this, or et cetera. I might not want to wholesale it, but like how would someone that's like coming into this a newer person be able to kind of leverage the same thing? Like, I guess I'm
great question.
in my head, and I'm not sure like how I would play that, but it sounds great. Like I want to, but yeah.
How about reverse engineering it? How about instead of going into the contract not knowing who you're going to sell it to, what about going into that contract knowing who is going to buy it from you? So you have those buyers beforehand.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So the people who are going to buy it from you, they have proof of funds, right? They don't want to assign it themselves. So you can even, in fact, put them on the contract. They can pay you a finder's fee or some sort of a fee outside of closing, for example. So you can always leverage people who are going to buy it from you actually in the transactions process itself.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you're actually, Jason, in that case, you wouldn't be the buyer. What you do is you represent a buyer. That's how you can pivot, your position in the transaction. All you do is represent somebody who's going to buy it.
Yeah. So like in that case, my assignment fee wouldn't necessarily be an assignment fee. It would be, hey, I connected these two people. I know someone who's selling. I negotiated terms. I know someone who's willing to buy. Here you go.
And think about how much simpler that is too, just in terms of closing that transaction. There's no additional contract, right? There's no assignment contract. There's no conversation that you have to have with somebody that says, hey, I'm going to assign this. Let me introduce you to the buyer, right? I mean, you might still want to have that conversation just because you're not the one who's closing on it. But if you're representing yourself as someone who represents a buyer and not yourself, then that's an easier conversation to have. Right? Does that make sense, Jason? That's how you can kind of pivot it just a little bit.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. I mean, I've been thinking about that quite a bit because I wasn't entirely too sure how like I would approach that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. If you're looking in one specific area, state, whatever, what I would do is have 10 to 15 buyers who are reliable buyers who have money. And then all you have to do is start the conversation with the agent, move them down the line. As it becomes closer to contract, then you start to talk to your buyers and say, hey, look, would you be interested in this property at this price? And they could even go see it themselves before you contract the property.
Got it.
But that's the safest way to do it, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you have to be a little more methodical about it. You can't just like blindly cold call. But that makes sense because I don't think blindly cold calling is all that great of an approach either. It works for some people, if it does great, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. All right, guys. Before we close up shop, any other questions, concerns?
No, thank you very
feedback?
much. This was very fun. I'm ready to do it again next week.
It was fun. I wish that we could. Are you signed up for next week, by the way, Kerrie? No. Okay. I'm out of town. So I was going to say, if you are signed up next week, Jason, you're signed up for tomorrow, I think, aren't you?
Yeah. It's I work from home Thursday, Fridays, Monday through Wednesday. I'm in the office, so anytime I can come in and get some reps, and I'm probably gonna
perfect.
Sign up.
Awesome. Well, I will see you tomorrow. Before I stop the recording here, do me a favor, leave this open for about a minute or so, just so I can process. It's going to take about a minute. And then next time we will get some more deals. I appreciate both of you guys coming on today. Thank you so much.
All right. See you later.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys later.